A lot of people work in jobs that sell products they can't even afford. A lot of people work in restaurants, serving food they themselves would never eat. I used to work in a job that sold products I can't afford. But then, who else has $100 million in their back pocket to buy a fighter jet? These days that'd be true even working at a grocery store. You want to spend $65,000 on floors for your new house? Sold. Goes back to live in my shitty rental. My mate works in a Bentley factory. Employees are offered a 20% discount on their cars if they wish to buy one, but that's still at least £160,000 to spend on a car, and obviously the factory workers can't afford this. That's practically the definition of a job. Find someone richer than you and sell them stuff instead of using it yourself. True. I cannot afford a multi-million-dollar industrial beverage bottle cleaning, filling and packaging machine. Sad times. As a butcher is shooing away a dog from his shop, he sees a $25 bill and a note in his mouth that reads 10 pork chops, please. A $25 bill, eh? Where's that butcher? 10 pork chops for $25 is a great deal. That's a pretty good price for 10 pork chops. Didn't know they made $25 bills. A $25 bill? Where did this happen? I have heard that before, but it was definitely worth it a second time. Got to use my dad voice today. I always considered my dad voice to be the voice that I use to make my kids or anyone else immediately stop what they are doing. When they ask you how you feel, make sure to say with my fingers. I swear medical people ask the weirdest questions. Are you okay? No. Why else would I be here? Could also have responded with no, I'm Name. You should have been in a wheelchair. No one walks in a hospital. I'd be a lot better if you didn't act like I'm here for tea. Ha 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 ha. Hello, we're Dimension 20 Burrows and Zabria Iyengar and Michael Shobak AMA. I've always been very curious as to what the Prepa Session 0 looks like for Dimension 20. This is honestly a question for the both of you, from your different perspectives. Thanks, dear Aubrey Akama. You rock. Thanks for getting me into actual play shows with Misfits and Magic. And thank you so much for giving us back a fun magical school. Goat House. Also, I don't even have words for how much I enjoy Worlds Beyond. Your favorite breakfast? Aubrey, you always do such an incredible job hitting the intended vibe with your character playlists and musical influences. What songs were on your Burrows and GN playlist, or if you didn't make one, what songs would be on it? I can't take my dog to the park anymore. The ducks keep biting him. Sounds like he's toast. I told the vet I can't keep paying this duck bill, and he called me a quack. I'm calling foul on this joke. That's the yeast of your worries. High grown factor. Well done. That was a good dad joke. Fuck. Sorry Hira, that's happening to Drake. Thank you. I just used this in a meeting and got many groans. The best sign of a good joke: heating bread and converting starch is using the Maillard reaction to make toast. I'm just glad you quacked the case. Add a sausage so he can be hot. The dogs just wanted to have a good play. Take care of this problem quickly. Nip it in the bud. Can't afford all those bills. Then the ducks shouldn't eat him. Bread is bad for them. He shouldn't be loafing around near the duck pond. This quacked me up. It's a ducking shame. SMH. Shouldn't feed ducks bread. If my dog was getting attacked, I'd be out in a quackness as well. Instead of Twitter, what large thing could Elon Musk potentially have bought for $44 billion? $1 billion would get him the entire Motown copyright catalog. You can buy approximately 698 F-16 jets with $44 billion. He could have rebuilt Atlantis and then sunk it again like he's Zeus. Power of the Gods is the OG boss move. A fleet of 4,400 M1A2 Abrams tanks, apparently, of an Abrams Tabke UTF-8 or UTF-8 HLNS client Safari. He could have bought a 2-bedroom bungalow in Vancouver. Off here, my personal theory is if he planned it well enough and moved quietly enough, he could have purchased all of Rhode Island. 0.142 of the US national debt. He bought Twitter for $44 billion? Fucking idiot. I downloaded it for free. A really cool boat. A seat at the table with me. At least 3 Supreme Court justices. It's honestly an incredible feat that we put humans on the moon with such limited technology, and it's never talked about anymore. Kinda weird. The topic is constantly in my video suggestion feed. It's talked about a lot in certain circles, perhaps ad nauseum. Let us remember the algorithm can skew our view of what is and isn't talked about. Consider that the device you use to post this has more processing power than the entirety of NASA in 1969. I think the idea, not to mention the physics, mechanics, and math to use the Earth's gravity and rotation to slingshot the Apollo towards the moon, and the same process in reverse for the return, is absolute genius. And a flip phone has more computing power than the Apollo. Insane. The tech was the best in the world at the time. In the same vein, today's tech will look equally limited in 50 years and will marvel at all things we were still able to do. It's okay to state you can't function until you've had your morning coffee, but less okay when it's vodka. Joke's on you, I can't function at all coffee or vodka. Hey, I don't function without my morning bongs. That's because coffee doesn't impair your motor functions and decision making. Tell me you've never known a chronic alcoholic without etc etc. Wait, you guys are functioning? It's more common than you think. Liquor stores were called essential business for a reason during the lockdowns. There wasn't room in hospitals for all of the alcoholics that would have gone into. I say it's more common than you think, I mean you'd be shocked. When I was in my 20s I had no idea. 30 and I know a lot of people who'd be in deep shit without medical attention. These people have jobs and often show no signs of intoxication save for the constant smell of mouthwash. It's the same, okay, we both wake up shaky. Man turning into stone. Growing a second skeleton where my muscles and tissues turn to bones. Fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva FOP. Ask me anything without being too broad. What's it like? Like, how does it feel physically? Can you tell when a particular piece of tissue is changing? Can you feel sharp points? What's most notable physically aside from just having no mobility? When did you start noticing issues and how quickly did it progress? What is your favorite TV show or movie? What's your favorite show, food, or hobby to help when you're having a rough day? Do you keep an iguana? Really enjoy watching my leopard gecko run around. Herps have so much personality. Most people wouldn't want their lives made into a 100 accurate movie. All the protagonist does is wake up late and rush to work. Like seriously, he hasn't learned by now that he just needs to wake up when his alarm goes off and his life would be so much easier? And what's with all the eating? This guy is going to get heart disease by the time he's 45. We are giving this movie 1 star out of 5 for how unrealistic it is. Not only would I not want that, I wouldn't want anyone to have to suffer through such a boring movie. Most people wouldn't believe a 100 accurate movie about my life. Well yeah, I don't think anyone needs a film where a good portion of it is just jacking off in the bathroom. There's a Black Mirror episode about exactly this. Perhaps because art is a sort of second chance to improvise your story past. There'd be a lot of boring filler, but there'd be some pretty good shit in there too. People who appreciate penises. What's the ideal penis size for you? Suddenly I feel great about myself reading these. I'd say between 5 to 8 inches, the rest hurts. Also, pro tip, don't go sex toy shopping when you're horny. Average. Makes oral way more fun and still good for most positions. 4-6 inches. Me after reading the comments. Hey Google, translate inches into cm please. 5-6 length. Girth is much more important. And it only matters when hard flaccid is pretty much irrelevant. Any longer and it'd feel painful or even dangerous to go all the way in. Big dicks are nice to look at but pretty much pointless unless you have a fetish for large, probably uncomfortable penetration. I'm telling you, your average willy really is perfect. 5-6 inches. Exactly your size, king. Least horny ass credit question. Till only 58 of British homes had a refrigerator by 1970. None of which had a built-in freezer. At the time the British homes that did have a refrigerator and needed a freezer would opt for a chest freezer anyway. We had a refrigerator in the early 70s that had an icebox, a mini freezer built in. You could get a couple of ice trays and maybe a couple of TV dinners in there. I'm guessing by none of which had a built-in freezer. They're not counting iceboxes. And toilets connected to main sewer also. I remember 1980s Australia. Major metropolitan city and not everybody had flushable toilets. Many people still had outhouses you'd have to crawl out into the cold night to poop. People forget how modern is. Then we walked to school, in the snow, uphill, both ways. Till people throw 1.5 million euros in coins into the Trevi fountain each year. I wanted to throw one when I visited but they had the barricades for the crowds pushed way back. I'm not gonna throw a coin like it's a hand grenade with carabinieri staring at me like that. 1.5 million averages out to $4,109 a day. 171 an hour, 2.85 a minute, or 0.05 rounded up from 0.047 per. Going to the Trevi fountain. What are folks going to throw when cash is phased out? Who you think counted M? Smirking face, welcome. The question is which one will the fountain bless? It would probably be much cheaper and faster to have some clear liner that can be lifted every so often to take all the coins out. That's a lot of manpower for a simple task. Still, the notion that lobster was such a low-quality food that prisoners in New England rioted if it was overserved and indentured servants had contracts stating they could only have lobster 3 times a week is actually a myth. Lobsters and other crustaceans have enzymes in their body that make them start rotting. Lobster is delicious. Lobster that's been dead for a few hours is literally garbage. It wasn't that bad, but it was still a cheap, low-class food. As usual, a nugget of truth is exaggerated to sound sensational. My grandfather in Nova Scotia, Canada was a lobster fisherman. Back then the poor kids would be bringing in lobster for their school lunch while the wealthy families would be able to afford bologna sandwiches. Till there is actually a myth that lobster was such a low-quality food that prisoners in New England rioted if it was overserved, and indentured servants had contracts stating they could only have lobster 3 times a week. Till of sweating sickness. A mysterious illness that has only been recorded in England between 1485 and 1551 and seemed to affect almost exclusively wealthy men in their 30s and 40s. Death would usually occur mere hours after the onset of symptoms. It is unknown what it was. The current leading theory is that it was a type of hantavirus, caused by the aerosolization of mouse droppings when swept with a broom. That's why it targeted the wealthy. They stored large amounts of grain in their big kitchens, attracting a sizable rodent population. A hantavirus outbreak with similar symptoms occurred in the 90s. The Four Corners outbreak. Maybe there was a fad among wealthy men of that age of some sort that had unknown consequences, like boofing dried pheasant spleen with psychedelic mushrooms was fine, but then when combined with absinthe enemas caused unexpected symptoms. God, I hate my imagination sometimes. The poison for Cusco? Till that Stephen King was so disappointed with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, that he teamed up with director Mick Garris in 1997 to remake the film into a miniseries that is more true to the novel than the original film. Wasn't the Jack Nicholson character played by the guy from Wings? I have been hearing this rumor for years, but then literally last week I found this clip of King talking about the movie and saying he loved it. So is this just a complete myth, or did he change his mind later? I'd if it's just targeted at me, but this website had some of the most foul, disgusting ads I have ever seen at the bottom of the page. I think I watched that miniseries with my older brother and loved it. Thank you for helping me find it again. The main thing I remember about this version is that Gus from Recess played Danny. It was kinda distracting. Hot take: movies don't have to be true to the novel to be good. I'm here for an artistic interpretation of the a one-for-one reproduction is silly. Till that in the city of Cincinnati, appellations are a protected class. States and local jurisdictions may provide additional protections. For example, Ohio prohibits housing discrimination based on ancestry or military status, and Cincinnati prohibits housing discrimination based on sexual orientation, marital status, or appellation origin. Additional protections vary by state and by city. I won a special scholarship for an Appalachian Arts Festival submission I wrote about interviewing my great-grandmother going through the Depression with her 5 siblings. I always thought of Appalachia as mountain folks, like my great-grandmother who grew up in West Virginia, but my region of Ohio technically was included. It's a wider expanse than people know. Till that the majority of men in Germany sit down to urinate. I sit down to Reddit. I just pee at the same time. I switched to it too in my own home when I was old enough to care about having a clean home, because standing just makes more of a. Asked what he attributed his success in life to. Winston Churchill responded, economy of effort. Never stand up when you can sit down, and never sit down when you can lie. He may have been fat and smoked and drank, but he also lived to 90, so it sounds like he won. Sit sprinklers. The German language is just. I piss standing up in the dark, and listen for the pings like Daredevil. Public bathroom stand. At home sit. Friend's house probably sit. While the majority of women stand. That is a trait I share with them. Far more relaxing that way. Peeing standing up is massively overrated. Till the Mayflower ship is believed to have been scrapped for timber and assembled into a barn in Buckinghamshire, England. I grew up in that village. No idea if the story is actually true, but William Penn is also buried there. Because of the Quaker history, there are no pubs, so you have to go to the neighboring village for a pint. Thanks, Quakers. I don't know why, but I am surprised to find it went back across the Atlantic again. The joists in my house are from about 400 years ago. They are slightly curved and it does feel a bit like a ship on a dark evening. Elizabeth I borrowed money for some war, and to repay it someone wanted the timber back for houses. The barn of Theseus, Captain Cook's Endeavour, was scuttled off Newport, Rhode Island in 1778 according to Wikipedia. One of the greatest exploring vessels of all time, consigned to Davy Jones' locker. 'Tis a fine barn, but sure 'tis no boat English. Vegans that started eating meat again. What happened? I know someone who was a vegetarian for 13 years simply because someone told them they couldn't do it. I guess he figured 13 years was enough to prove a point and went back to eating meat after. Homeless and pregnant, eat what I was given. I still eat mostly vegetarian food and have done all my life. However, my husband was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and celiac, which means that a high-fiber, lower-iron diet is not an option, and a lot of the substitutes aren't gluten-free. More often than not, when he has meat, I'll leave it or have the veggie equivalent, but there are just not enough hours in the day to make 2 separate lasagnas and sauce, etc. I was raised vegetarian, so I'd never had meat before. Once I was on vacation with my best friend and his parents made steak just for the 2 of us. I ate it purely out of politeness, and it was the best thing I'd ever had in my whole life. What did you think was normal about your body until someone pointed out that it wasn't? I thought I was bad at running because my throat would seize up and get painful whenever I ran for more than a minute. I mentioned this to my doctor when I was 30. Turns out I have asthma. My tongue has a bunch of cracks and craters in it and is not smooth. Apparently most people don't have much in the way of toe dexterity. I am monkey down there. That your brain never stopping is not normal. It's actually a sign of hyperactivity. The first time I took meds and I only thought of one thing at a time? Overwhelming. The petit mal seizures I can remember as far back as 6 years old. It wasn't until I was 10 and had a grand mal seizure that I really understood I should have said something before then, but I was embarrassed. Lower back dimples. I got teased in middle school when we went to a water park. My partner loves them. What do you call an X-moss tree lying on the ground? Bit graphic mate. Oh. After the axis has got to it. I see what you did there. Except the x-axis is horizontal and y is upright. An XX mass tree. As an architect, I love this joke. It's also an X-mess tree. Lazy, but wouldn't it still be an X-moss tree? Or would it be a Z-moss tree? If you can't work it out, do the maths. Oh, I got it. The y-axis. Someone swapped the axis. Tana down. An XX moss tree. What do you call boobs on a ghost? I thought you would say boob eyes. What does a big-breasted spirit boost? Yay. Boo OBS? Or Ghostbusters? Cool gazongas? Or boob eyes? A royal with cheese? Boo tears. My ultimate fantasy. Ghost boobs. Spectral zeppelins. Pillowcases. Why do you call boobs on a boobs? Lamau, but that's an uncle joke. Ectohonkers. Melancholies. I wonder if ghosts motorboat? Ghost? Honeybee. Airbags. Boobies. What outdated or obsolete tech are you still using and are perfectly happy with? Adobe CS4. Screw the monthly subscriptions. A calculator. You know, with buttons and a screen. I have an off-grid cabin in the woods. I have a small PC responsible for recording saving images from security cameras, and also serves as a data logger for my weather sensors. It all runs on Windows XP and it's rock solid. Watches that only tell the time. Maybe the date, too. Still love playing the Nintendo GameCube. I still take a notepad and pen into every meeting. iPod Classic 160 GB.